This meeting is now being recorded. Does everyone see that? It's not saying it on mine.
It is on mine.
Okay, good.
It's on mine.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, this is the the May meeting of the Economic Development Commission. Welcome. The agenda is up on the board. Before we start the agenda, I've announced that let me go through the agenda. I've announced that we're recording. In a minute, we'll have additions or deletions to the agenda. As always, we'll have citizen comments. Again, if you will allow comments throughout the agenda, time permitting. So if you have comments on different things, we can start with those. We'll have a quick update on the finances, and I want to discuss our approach to the remainder of 2021, both because there are some specific issues or opportunities I think that we should consider now that we are where we are in the middle of the year, and also because it sets the stage for a specific funding request from one of our working groups, the first one, which is the marketing working group. I have a quick comment about listserv communications, and then we'll go through each of the working groups and the projects. Not every group has to have an update, but if there are any. Beth?
It seems like people should mute because there's some background stuff going on.
Yeah, there is. I'm hearing an echo as well. So if everybody could mute yourself and then just unmute when you're ready to make a comment. Thanks, Beth. Before we start on additions or deletions to the agenda, I just want to make a brief comment. Alita Wilson is not here tonight, and the reason is that she stepped down from the EDC. She called me about a month or 2 months ago, maybe month and a half, whatever, and said that she was quite concerned that she just didn't have enough time. She's, in addition to trying to get Pentangles keeping it above their heads above water and reopening, she's also extremely active on the town hall renovation project, which is reaching a very active design stage where people are trying to figure out how to build a modern theater, and she's very, very involved in that, obviously. So she asked, I asked her to give it a month and try it out, and she did, but she basically decided that she just didn't have time. So that leaves us with one vacancy on the EDC, and Bill, I'll be coming to Nikki and sending her. We'll post the opening on the and go through the sort of the normal process. I did, just by complete luck, a few days after Alita told me that, I got a call from a woman named Jennifer Baxter, and some of you may remember Jennifer. She is the chief financial officer of the transportation. What's the transportation company in the
Advanced Transit.
Advanced Transit. Thank you, Sally. And Jennifer is a prior candidate for the EDC, and so she plans to apply. Whoops! Someone is unmuted. Sally, it might be. No. Anyway, yeah. Okay, it's gone. Anyway, she had told me that she was interested in applying again in about a year, but her time is freed up a little bit. So we'll have at least one applicant, and we'll publicize it, and we'll go through the process. And I want to thank Alita. She's not here, but in absentia for her brief but I think productive role. She's always obviously going to stay involved in village affairs, so I don't think we'll miss her too much. Okay, any additions or deletions to the agenda?
I guess where would be the best time to talk about the van pool?
Van pool. How about why don't we do that under new business 7B? Is that okay?
Okay. And there was kind of related to that, there was a meeting about the electric vehicle grant or electric, it's not just vehicles, but like EV grants, partially related to the van pool, but also just in the area from Two Rivers Ottauquechee.
Okay, let's have let's just have a transportation discussion.
Perfect.
On 7B, we'll add that to new business, van pool / EVs. Okay, good. Thank you, Devin. Evan, any other items of new business? I'm sorry, to add to the agenda? Okay, seeing none. Citizen comments. Are there any comments on other issues before we get to these? Going once? No? Okay. Approval of the minutes. The minutes are posted on the website. Is there a motion to approve them? Patrick is muted, but Patrick has moved.
I motion, yep.
Larry, that's
I'll second.
are you crossing yourself? Or are you? Seconded by Larry. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, okay, minutes are approved. Financial update. Okay. Let me, what I want to do is show you where I think we'll be at the end of the year, and then discuss 3 issues for consideration. We don't have to do any of them, but I thought it was worth discussing and getting a sense of the EDC. So first of all, where will we likely be? This shows for each year how much revenue we took in, and in the case of 2021, the current calendar year, what we're forecasting in red. The reds are forecasting. Now, how much we granted, and then how much was unencumbered at the end of the year. So we entered 2 years ago, if you remember, we had $400,000+. Last year, we gave out about $370,000 in grants. And then since then, I've added another $140,000 in COVID-related funding, $100,000 for the Business Relief Fund, and about $40,000. I think we gave $25,000 to the preschool to build a kind of a virtual, a hybrid classroom, and a few other small things that were all COVID related. So we actually gave out, a very significant amount of money, much more than we took in. And we also recovered some funds from prior years. This is just money that was unspent. We give someone $10,000 and they only spend $8,500. We get eventually get $1,500 back. So we basically entered this year with this calendar year with $158,000 still in the bank. That doesn't include our moratorium funds. We actually have another $200,000 in the bank, but $158,000 unencumbered. We have revenue data for the first quarter, about $50,000 in $45,000 in Q1. That's the first payment we've received. That's down about 45% from the same quarter a year earlier. We're about to, in 10 days, get our second quarter payment. Based on some data that the state, you can actually find in advance some of the state data. For January and February, it looks like we're trailing quite a bit behind the rest of the state. And I've actually spoken to the person who does the options tax calculations at the state. It's amazing in a small state that you can actually reach the individual person who works on this something. And he can't really explain why Woodstock is, we're lagging behind Windsor County, and as well as the state. And we can't explain why. But assuming that we continue to lag behind in that same way, we would get about $165,000 this year. Assuming, as of now, we've made no grants from the current year funding. Remember, all of the money we've given out so far is from the 2020 Business Relief Fund, and it's captured here, basically.
John,
Yes, Joe?
is that 165,000 projected for the year?
Yes.
I got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, projected, and projected on what I think is I don't want to say worst case basis, but a somewhat conservative basis.
Okay.
I don't think we should count on a lot more right now. I do think next year is going to be much better, but and it might be much better in the third quarter or the fourth quarter, but I don't think for now we should assume that the first 2 quarters are any better.
Right.
So without spending any money, we'd add 165,000 to our balance at the beginning of the year. And in a minute, you'll see, I think we're going to recover about $6,000 from the moratorium funds. I think we won't use, we'll give back most of it eventually, but we won't use about 5,000 or 6,000. So that would give us $330,000 at the end of this year, or now, if you want to think of it now, roughly now, in order to do something with, or to hold and wait for next year. Patrick? Oh, you're muted, Patrick.
Do we know roughly what the third and fourth quarter typically is?
We do, but I don't right here. Maybe Sally, you can tell us. I think the third and fourth quarters are more than half. Sally can.
Yeah, it's in the financial report that I put up each month. I believe it's the second page. You'll see a breakdown by quarter. So I don't have that right in front of me right now. but
I have it in front of me, Sally. Thank you.
yeah.
The fourth quarter is the highest. Again, the way we record it, when we record something in February, we get our money 6 weeks after a quarter ends. So our February payment, which we've received, was for Q4 of 2020, October,
Gotcha.
November, December. So that just so you can calibrate. So this is about the funds that we would have available to us starting in 2022 if we did nothing. And again, I think we could expect to add during 2022, 200 to 300,000. So we would have healthy funding at the end of this year. I'm sorry, in 2020 to begin to develop grants. Now, I hope that the working groups, by the time we get to January, that the working groups, at least some of them, not all of them, but some of them will be ready to put forward some proposals that require significant funding, like the housing group. The policy group won't, I don't think, but the housing group will. The downtown rejuvenation group might, and so forth. Now we do, so part of the, so that's where we stand financially from an overview. I just want to remind people about the moratorium. We have, in addition to those funds, we have another $222,000 in the bank that we have promised to a number of organizations. And you can see Global Local 10,000, the litter receptacle 16, Teagles Landing, we've promised 85, we've held back 77. Woodstock Fireworks, I think we will get this back. In fact, we know we'll get this back. The town has already said this time has passed, so they can't use it. He didn't. I think we'll get back $1,000. Where is it? Here, because the COVID signs cost $1,000 less. We paid for those. We can debate whether we should have paid for them, but it was an emergency. We paid for them. So I think we'll get back this 5,000, and we'll get back 1,000 from this. And the rest of these, as I understand it, the groups are still interested in using the funds for the purposes in which they were originally intended. Now, the big grant here for $50,000 for the school, it's unclear to me whether or not they intend to use this money for exactly the purpose that was originally granted. I think I know these funds are very important to that group as they've talked about them as they think about how to fund and finance the high school. I don't think we should count on getting them back, but I don't think we're making any decision to yet release them because I think we need to learn a little bit more about exactly how they would be used. Again, the principle being that we gave you a grant for X, Global Local, we gave you a grant for this particular type of concerts. If you're going to do this particular type of concerts, then here's the money. If you're not, then please reapply. So I think one of the questions, so that's our situation. And I think that leaves us with 3 questions, and then I'll stop here and ask for comments and thoughts. Do we want to maintain funding for the Business Relief Fund? So $100,000 of this number was granted to the Business Relief Fund. According to Sally's latest report, we have granted $61,000 of that 100. So we still have $39,000 sitting there, and the program is still available. So, and by the way, if we got back that 39,000, that would add, if we shut the program down and there's still 39,000 in it, that would add to this total. This total assumes that we get nothing back.
How's it being used?
John, can I ask a question?
Oh, sorry, Joe and then Patrick.
When was the last time there was an application for that?
Yeah, Sally, can you?
Months ago, probably 6 months ago.
Okay.
And no, there didn't seem to be any interest since then?
Nope,
Okay, no inquiries or anything like
nope,
that?
none at all. And we haven't advertised it, but anybody who,
Yeah.
if anybody's paying attention to what the EDC is doing, they would know that those funds are still there. But we did not. There have been a lot of other opportunities for businesses to get funds. So I don't think I think we were really the emergency fund.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Patrick?
And that was basically my questions. When's the last time we had interest? So
Yeah.
You answered it. Thank you.
Thanks, Sally. Okay, so first question is, do we want to maintain funding for the Business Relief Fund? Second is, do we want to release all of the funds that were placed in moratorium? And third is, do we want to accept applications for community grants before January 2022? Now, the reason I'm saying that is I imagine that by the time we get to, I think we were happy with the let's do it all in January approach that we pilot tested in 2020. Assuming that's the case, because we said we would revisit it. Assuming that's the case, I think by the time we get to January 2022, I hope, we would be feeling like, or at least by the time we get to say October, we would be feeling like, okay, we're ready to go back to our normal cycle, and we would issue a call for grants to be evaluated and granted in January of 2022, the way we did in January of 2020. That if we did only that, that would mean we would give no community grants for calendar 2021. I know that you all know my view that community grants should be a small part of what we do, not a huge part. But I also know the views of many of you that community grants should not be eliminated. And it occurs to me that if we were to open it up for a small, for applications of, I don't know, $25,000, to apply in June or July for the remainder of the year, maybe that's something we should do. It would provide some momentum and excitement perhaps and so forth. I'm not arguing strongly for it, but I just thought we've reached a point in time in the year when, given the funds we have available, we might want to consider it. So that's where we are. Here are at least some questions that I thought we should consider. If there are other options or ideas that people have, I think we can take a few minutes and talk about those. So, Patrick.
So if I see the numbers right that Sally pointed out on quarterly, we get the largest amount of money in February.
Right.
Which is basically, that's covering foliage, correct?
October through just October 1 to December 30th.
Okay, so that's all right. Okay, because that's to me, I don't know. My feeling is we should probably wait until we see where the numbers come out.
Wait for all of these things, or
well, maybe open up a little bit, but let's.
I'm not trying to influence you. I'm just trying to clarify.
Yeah, no, my thinking is if we wait till 2022, when we know what we get in on the fourth quarter, we'll know how strong a footing we're on.
Okay. All right. Other comments or thoughts, Devin?
What would maintaining the business relief fund look like?
We would take no action, and there would be $39,000 in the bank. And if anyone applied, we would. There's a committee, Joe, Michael, and Sally evaluate the applications, but they've approved almost all of them, and a person would get up to $1,000.
Okay, I guess has there been any recent activity with that, or
no? That was the other question. Not for 5 or 6 months.
Okay, perfect.
Michael, were you scratching or commenting?
Yeah, so I think, look, if there hasn't been activity in 5 or 6 months, that's pretty a good sign that we can probably shut that down, move the funds back over to the account, and then we can always reopen that account as needed. On the same kind of note, in terms of releasing funds, I think it's probably specific to the grant, and also figuring out, I think the real deal is like what's going to happen in July, in terms of our concerts for global local. Are they going to be able to do these kinds of things? Like, I think we have to wait and see where the state lies in terms of opening venues and all that kind of stuff. And that's really grant specific stuff. But so I think it's kind of premature to make a decision until we have to follow the state guidelines.
Okay, good comment. Any other thoughts about any or all of these? Jeff?
Yeah, a question about the moratorium funds.
Mhm.
For instance, we have these really horrifically ugly litter receptacles, trash cans in the village, and those funds were approved for new ones to replace some, but not all of them, I believe. Is the EDC going to release those funds? I mean, what would the EDC want to wait for, as opposed to having those in place for the summer season, for instance?
No, that's a fair question.
Well, it's two different questions, right? One is releasing the existing grants that have already been approved versus opening up for new grants.
No,
right?
I'm talking about the existing grant, Patrick, the
No,
existing.
I know that, but I'm just clarifying that there's two different, we were having a discussion about new grants, but now we're bouncing back.
Both of those questions are on the page that
Okay.
this is the question Jeff, I think, is releasing around a specific one. And
Yes.
you, Patrick, are just also mentioning this one. So
Right.
we're doing all of them as a jumble.
Okay, I wasn't sure, well, it may be wiser to do the second one and answer Jeffy's question and then go to the third as opposed to
Yeah.
being jumbled.
Fair enough. All right, well, that's fine. Let's see if we can focus on that. Joe and then Larry.
Oh, I just want to make an observation. We're talking about the trash cans, right, Jeff?
Yes,
Yeah. Well, I anticipate, and I could be wrong, we're going to get a version of the trash cans that were approved for Teagle's Landing. And it should get there. Beth checked on it today. It should get there in probably 3 or 4 weeks. I would think as soon as people see that thing, there's going to be a lot of interest from the community about, why can't we have them all around town? So and we talked about it a bit, and I said, my position was, well, let's get this one in first, see how it goes over. And if it seems like it's widely desired, and we can go from there. I'm just trying to give folks a little bit of a heads up and some information that they can process on this topic. We're getting one in 3 or 4 weeks. Maybe it might be a good idea to look at it and see how we like it. And if we do like it, we can get more if people want to.
Joe, I have a question about that because
Right.
I guess I don't understand the process. I thought the grant was already made for $16,000.
It was.
Pre-existing, it's being held. And it was approved based on what ones that we saw, or that the EDC saw and the public saw.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to get them in time for the summer season? If it's going to be 4 weeks till you're going to get one set for Teagle's Landing,
Right.
why not get as much as was already granted for the?
Jeff, I think that's an excellent question. I think it deserves a wider audience, probably the whole commission, to decide that. All I'm saying is, when we initially looked at trash cans, one of the things we tried to pursue, one of the options we tried to pursue, is get a sample from some of these companies and say, let's take a look at it and see how it really looks in person. And we were turned down. Now that opportunity is going to represent itself, and I think it's probably going to initiate and ignite more conversation about it. But you make a valid point. Why wait? Why not get it now? I mean, as it stands, this one, and Beth can correct me if I'm wrong, from ordering it to getting it, it's going to be about 6 weeks.
8 to 10.
8 to 10.
8 to
There you
10
go.
weeks.
So yeah, you can start talking about it now if that's what people want to do. I'm just saying we're going to have one there to look at in like 3 or 4 weeks if you want to. It's entirely up to you.
Larry, I'm going to call on you in 1 second, but just to Patrick's point about orderly, I'm sort of throwing these 3 questions out on the table, and Jeff is raised a specific version of it. Let's just keep brainstorming and mixing these topics. I apologize for the mess. And in about 10 minutes, if we haven't reached it, if there's still discussion, I'll cut it off and we'll go through these questions and make some decisions. But
Okay.
I just want to keep it free flowing a little bit because I think it'll be most productive if a little confusing. Larry or Dawn?
It'd be better if it was Dawn. I thought that a couple of meetings ago, we suggested, in any case, I would suggest that we could contact these various grantees and ask them to that we're considering taking them out of moratorium? Could they make a case for it one way or the other? But are they going ahead with it? When's the timing? What? Then
No,
we would know more.
Well, I think we did that actually. And just to go down, just in terms of the status, Larry, as I recall, it's not perfect, but Global Local said that they would like to use it for the original purpose. I think Michael's point about not knowing the schedule till we open up and so forth is valid for them. But the receptacles, I think we want to do that. We're discussing that right now. Teagle's Landing is already spent, so we will have to release these funds. The fireworks we're getting back. My understanding from Beth is that the chamber would like to and is planning to use the funds for what they were originally done. The Riverwalk, I believe, has already spent these. I'm sorry, the Riverwalk told us that they wanted to do it for the original purpose. The school has said the same thing, but there I don't think they have given us a clear explanation of why and how. So I think that I would not be in favor of releasing it until we get that. And I didn't press, so I think we need to do that. But they did give us an initial response that said, yes, we intend to use it for the purpose in which it was intended. So I'd like to learn more about it because it's so big. The 29,000 we're going to discuss tonight, and the marketing working group is going to ask us to release those funds now. And the 5,000 storefront incentive is really, I think that's just a program that we leave the funds in, and at the end of the year, we've either spent them or we roll them over to the next year. So I think it's really, so there's not, so that's the status of, we don't need to do a huge survey of those folks. I think we for the most part, we know what the situation is. Okay, other comments about any of these issues or related issues, Devin?
So I wasn't on the EDC, or I don't think I was in Woodstock when the decision to make a moratorium was made. What was the moratorium for, and what would be the reason to keep it now?
Yeah, so the moratorium was a request, a voluntary request, about 2 months after we made the grants, to all of the grantees to give us back as much of the money as we hadn't given them yet. Some of them had took money right away because they were spent. They only get the money when they spend it. So some of them spent a little bit of it right away. We asked them if they would be willing to give it back to us because we didn't know what the financial demands of COVID were going to be, and we wanted to set up a business relief fund, et cetera. We got back this a little bit more, maybe 240 or 250,000 of the 370, and we've been releasing a little bit of that, maybe 20 or 30,000 of it, in dribs and drabs as situations presented themselves. The reason for releasing it is we don't think there's going to be a resurgence and there won't be a further financial need, and we think that they could use it now. The reason for keeping it is the original reason for having it, which is maybe we should, if for example, if local global can't hold conferences, concerts until August, why give them the money now? They actually wouldn't get it until they hold the concert. So that's the dynamic. That's what we're debating. Does it make sense?
That does make sense. Yeah, I guess with the case of global local, if they're not going to get the money until they spend it anyways, then it seems like the moratorium is just an additional layer between them and the money, as opposed to, if we release all of these, we have another projected 160 something thousand that could be spent if there was some more financial need, COVID related or not. And the money that's already been promised, I don't see a good reason why it wouldn't be released now.
Okay, thank you. We did, by the way, commit to these moratorium folks that they would be first in line. We were not taking the money away. We were moratoriuming it. That's a verb. And so they will eventually get it as long as the purpose is the same. So, all right. So thank you. So there's been some call for it's premature and some call to say we should give it to them now. All right. Other thoughts or comments on any of these issues? And then I'll go through each one and we'll make a decision. All right. Okay. Let's just start with the first one then. Do we want to maintain funding for the Business Relief Fund? I suppose in some sense, I think it was Michael who made the point that we could always restart the fund. It's really perhaps an accounting decision. I think, Michael, that was sort of the point you were making. Should we? put it back into our general funds because there's a pretty low chance of, it's just sort of screwing up our accounting, and then we can always agree to go back?
I'll move.
Okay.
And I'll,
Patrick, a second. All right, you're moving to take the money back from the business relief fund, but allowing for the possibility of reopening the fund if we think that there's a new need.
What you
Correct.
said, exactly.
All right, although, sorry, any discussion, made and seconded by Patrick. Any further discussion of that? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Michael, I can't see you, but
John,
yes?
as long as it's unanimous, you don't need to do a roll call.
Right, no, I know, but I just want to make sure it's, okay, any opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Sorry. I couldn't see Michael, but I assume he's voting for it since that was, I think, one of his suggestions. Okay, so we will take the $39,000 back and account for it the way Michael and Joe suggested. Do we want to release some or all of the funds that were placed in moratorium? And maybe the way to think about this is, I think one or two of you made this sort of suggestion, is maybe to say, are there any of these moratoriums that we feel we should release this month? I think
I would move to release all of it, and just as it's spent and actually needed, then it's released. But I think having the moratorium as an additional step, I would move to release all of it, with maybe the exception of the Woodstock Union High School one, until that is clarified. But even then, we have to have them clarify that. I don't think correct me if I'm wrong, it wouldn't have to stay in moratorium in order for them to still have to go submit whatever they have to submit to us.
no, I think, no, they don't have to submit. None of these folks have to submit anything other than receipts once we take them out of
Okay.
moratorium. There's no further approval. So
So if Woodstock Union High School, though, is not going to use the funds for the same purpose, they would submit receipts for something that they weren't approved to submit receipts for, correct?
correct, but I think it's worth and we would then have a debate after they've spent money, which would not be a great time to have the debate.
Sure.
Because it
So
puts
maybe
them in a
keep-
tough position.
Can I move to release all of them except for that one?
You may.
Yes.
Can we stop you? Yes, no. All right, so Devin has made a motion to release all except for the school funds.
And if I could give one reasoning, it would
Well,
just
we
be
give
that
you reasoning in a
just-
second. Let's just,
Okay.
you made the motion. Is there a second?
I seconded it.
All right, made by Devin, seconded by Patrick. Go ahead, Devin. Discussion? Go ahead.
if we just dissolve the business relief fund, but said that we would, be open to potentially opening it in the future if there is a need, it doesn't seem like there's a good justification for keeping these funds in moratorium minus Woodstock Union High School.
Okay, any other discussion, Larry?
Yeah, I agree with most of what Devin says, but it seems to me that we shouldn't be singling out the high school because we're assuming every one of these people groups are going to use the money for the purpose that they said they were. And I think that's the distinction. I mean, we're not holding, I don't think it's right for us to hold the money back because we don't trust that they're going to do with that money what they said they were going to do. We'd have to say that with everybody. So it seems to me we should be releasing all of the funds on the basis that they're going to all be used for the purpose that they originally applied for.
I think Larry makes a good point.
Well, Patrick?
Well, I think the point, though, why Devin wants to hold back, why I'm agreeing with him, is we haven't clarified with the school that they are going to use it for the same, where the other ones, I thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, that they were contacted and asked, yes or no?
They were all contacted and asked. The nature of the responses were easier for some people and harder for others, not because of the people or their integrity or desire, but because of the nature of the grant and the fact that whether circumstances have changed or not. So,
Can you be specific there?
well, so for example, the chamber, Beth, the grant for the chamber has to do with purchasing baskets and metal permanent fixtures for flowers. And the chamber didn't do that yet and is proposing to use the funds, if we release them, to purchase metal fixtures and baskets for flowers. The school had $50,000 for a preliminary planning process that began, you know, that has very likely changed significantly because the whole project for the school is, you know, evolving. So I can't, with the same level of clarity, say that they're going to spend it, you know, they might, that they're going to spend it. We asked them and they answered, but they didn't quite answer fully. And they weren't able, and we didn't spend enough time, I guess, to resolve it. So one approach to resolve this is we could wait 1 month. I don't know that it would hurt anyone if we waited 1 month, and we could quite specifically ask, you know, ask the high school. So, but Jeff, you're shaking your head. You're saying, I presume you think about that because of the trash can. So, but anyway, that's the reason for the difference. It's not a matter of trust. It's a matter of clarity. Or an alternative, which would satisfy perhaps both of these needs, is we could release all of the funds along with a letter to each of them, basically saying that, remember, you only get reimbursed for expenses that you've made. You know, we will reimburse you if the use of the funds is exactly what you asked for when you first applied. We're trusting that you will do that, but be aware that if you submit a reimbursement that isn't for the original use, we're not going to pay it. And then that will satisfy.
That's what I think. That's the right approach, because maybe it's a quibble, but I don't think I think we would be lifting the moratorium.
Yeah.
And then just reasserting that when money gets spent, it's got to be spent for the purpose that they originally applied for.
Will you accept that as a Devin? Beth, 1 second. Oh, sorry, Beth, and then I'll ask Devin. Beth, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to clarify that the trash cans are not a chamber request. They were an EDC
Correct
beautification request.
Yeah, no. I meant to be talking about the flower baskets on the chamber budget.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, that had nothing to do with the receptacle. So, Devin, will you accept then as an amendment to your motion that we do?
Yes.
So I think your motion then becomes, is this correct, that we release the moratorium and remind all of the grantees of the terms of the.
Correct.
Okay.
Will it be a time frame involved? In other words, if you went to the school and say, would it be appropriate to say, we'd like to know within a certain time frame whether or not you plan to use them or not? Is that appropriate or not?
Well, we haven't done that with other grantees. I mean, Sally, you've got grants outstanding for how long? A long time.
For quite a while, but most of them are ones that we should be closing. So
yeah.
Well, it sounds like
I think it actually says that there's funds supposed to be used within 1 year in the award letter. But obviously, with the moratorium, it would be 1 year from when we release the funds.
Well,
I don't think we need to put a time frame on it. They're not going to get paid unless they're using it for the reason anyway. So I think we just release them all.
And Joe, from our financial management point of view, once the funds are encumbered, we don't count them in our balances. I mean, we have them in the bank, but we don't count them as money that we have.
Well, I'm just curious, John, the possibility does exist if there is a time frame set in place, and if that particular grant doesn't take advantage of it within that time frame, that then it goes back in the general fund and we can use it for other things, or it would just stay there in perpetuity until they decide to use it.
Well, what if we were just, if the letter, or if one thing we could choose to do is to not change any of the terms. So like, I think the intent of the moratorium, as someone said, was not to change what we do, but to simply change the timing of the funds. So why don't we let the original grant letter dictate the terms of the grant?
Okay.
And
okay.
All right. So any other discussion of this motion? We're on the second one. All right. So all in favor of releasing the moratorium and reminding people of the requirements, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Good. Okay, excellent. Okay, and then lastly, do we want to accept applications for community grants prior to, well, I mean, this month, do we want to decide to accept applications prior to January? We can reconsider this again in the future if we think it's premature. I think Michael, someone made the point that might be premature. Any?
I would agree that it's probably premature.
Do we want to set a time? Do we think that there's a, I guess what we're premature meaning that we can't predict when it's going to be. So, I mean, I don't think that in June, we want to say 5 months from now, you can apply for grants, because that's going to be November and then again in January. So what I think the longer we wait, which by the way, I'm fine personally, I'm fine with waiting, but the longer we wait, I think the more of an obligation we have to do a very quick, small cycle. You know, we'd sort of have to say, okay, in our June meeting or our July meeting, you know, in the next 4 weeks, please prepare a grant. At the next EDC meeting, we're going to consider grants. They should be small for the remainder of the year, that kind of thing.
I mean, were we considering anything other than small grants with that? I guess it's up to us, but it sounded like because it's a mid-year thing that we would probably only be considering smaller grants. If that's the case, it could probably be a little bit faster of a turnaround.
Right.
I think I would personally be, in favor of waiting until January, but I think if we want to reconsider this in a month or two, that would be fine.
Well, I think the question is, do we want to do anything today? And I think you're saying no, and some other people have said no also. So is there anyone in favor of doing anything today? Okay, so as we'll consider it again, but the next time someone thinks we should be considering it. So
I'd really like to see where, how things turn around if they really, I'm feeling it as a lodging property, but it'd be nice to know that it really is turning around.
Agreed. No, I'm comfortable with this decision. I think that's fine. Okay. All right, good. Okay. Whoops, we skipped over new business somehow. Did we skip over? Yeah. So, so 2 items. One is the listserv communications, and one is the Vanpool / electric vehicles. Listserv communications. I don't intend to have a long discussion about this. We can have as long a discussion as anyone would like. It was communicated to me that some member or members of the EDC, I don't know who, and I intentionally didn't ask, were suggesting that people shouldn't be criticizing us on the listserv. And
Criticizing us, meaning EDC?
The EDC, yeah, should not be posting. It's unclear to me what I can't give a completely coherent description of the complaint, but the best I can is that we were trying, some of us, one or more of us were trying to shut up dissent, stifle dissent. And that secondly, that and unfortunately, I think by I have to say my calls for people to attend the meetings was a signal to reinforce that we are trying to stifle dissent. In other words, you can only say things at a meeting because that's why we're encouraging you to come to a meeting, which was interpreted by at least one member of our community as a signal that we don't want people to be dissenting in other forums. So I would simply like to state publicly, this meeting is public and it's recorded and will be on the website, that unless anyone on the EDC disagrees, our policy and philosophy is to encourage open communications, that, the listserv is what the listserv is. People get facts right, they get facts wrong. We all have to live with social media these days, and we do not discourage communications on the listserv, and that our calls for attendance at EDC meetings are meant to encourage people to attend EDC meetings and have no further purpose. I don't think we need a motion or anything of that sort, but is there anyone who disagrees with that?
I think it's a great statement, John. We should leave it right there.
Yeah. Okay. Unless I hear any.
And this is being recorded and will be posted on the website.
It will be.
Information available for everybody. I think it summarizes the whole thing, and leave it there.
All right.
Would you want to correct misinformation? That would be my only question.
That I just want to separate out that topic from this one, so we can put a ribbon around this topic as to what our intent is for public participation, and that we We can take the dissent in whatever form it comes. Whether our strategy should, how active our strategy should be to correct misinformation is kind of a longer topic, and it's a philosophical one and a practical one as well. Since I'm often the one posting, I take advice from a number of people, and you know who you are, who give me a lot of advice about when to post and so forth. And it's always a back and forth. We sort of have to figure, is it worth it to, you know, these issues tend to die out, but sometimes they're worth, you know, correcting the mistaken facts, and sometimes it's worth ignoring the mistaken facts. And I have frankly, no clue as to when one should ignore it or post. And I probably get it wrong 80% of it, you know, who knows? So I think if any of you have advice about that, feel free, you know, to send me an email, or feel free to post yourself. You're all, you know, you're all members of the EDC. We're all members of the public. We're all allowed to do whatever we want to do. So
John, I've only witnessed personally one or two examples of which you speak where there was some opinions that lacked, I think, accurate information or were misunderstood. And I felt personally that you addressed them well, and to keep poking the beehive would be a mistake. Just they came, they expressed whatever they expressed, you addressed it, and it's done as far as I'm concerned.
well, anyway, I think we just have to have a sense of humor about this also.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, good. Any other discussion about this? Okay. New item, the van pool initiative, and then electric vehicles. Devin, you want to update us on both of those things? Excuse me one second, I'm just gonna.
Sure.
Go ahead, Devin.
So I think at the last meeting we discussed the potential of the EDC kind of helping to start off this van pool idea for helping with transportation subsidies from the state, as well as potentially the EDC contributing. We're still very much in kind of the planning stage and getting interest. However, we have a date, May 10th at 11 a.m. This is coming Monday, to kind of bring businesses together that are interested in participating and actually hashing out some potential routes, and basically allow them to start advertising the van pool on their job descriptions.
Excuse me one second. Can everybody mute themselves? I'll do the same. I'm hearing a bit of an echo. Go ahead, Devin. Sorry.
It might actually be an echo from my end.
It's Ivan. Tell Ivan to turn down.
It is Ivan. So yeah, that's. Just trying to see if there's any other details. I've been sending out some messages on the listserv. I've heard from a couple of businesses that are interested. You know, I would say the biggest one so far, in addition to the ones that we were already talking to, was potentially the On the River Inn is interested. So I've been talking with their general manager and some others. So I think the May 10th meeting should be a pretty good showing, and I would encourage all of you to come if you're interested in either participating with your business or just learning more and kind of contributing to the conversation.
Devin, I have a quick question from a process or timing point of view. The cost of the pilot test, 6 months of a single van, is incredibly low because Vermont pays for almost all of it. So the cost would be about $200 or $250 a month, which would likely be borne in part by the merchant, by the business owner, and in part by the employee, and could, in fact, to encourage this test, be partly paid for subsidized by the EDC. Do we need, we haven't decided on what that split is yet, because we want to have input, I think, from the businesses. But Devin, do we need to approve? I mean, the order of magnitude, if the EDC paid $150 a month for a van for 6 months, it's $900. If we did 2 vans, it's $1,800. Do we need to approve funding now so that at the meeting on May 10th, if there is support, we can move ahead before the next EDC meeting? Or do we want to wait? Is it okay to wait till June 1st to do that?
I guess one way to look at it is that if the EDC was not comfortable putting funds up right away, even if the van pool started before our next meeting, we could always say that we'll start considering subsidizing it for the next 5 months or whatever, and then it's even lower cost to us. But I think because it's such a low cost for the employer and the employee, our initial contribution might make it marginally more attractive. But I think for any business that wants to try to attract employees with this and sees how low of a cost it is right off the bat, I don't know if our marginal contribution will make it that much more attractive. It'll be much more important after those 5 months or 6 months when the subsidy drops from $1,400 a month to $700 a month for a van cost that is somewhere around $1,500 or $1,600 a month with including fuel. So I don't think it's necessary for us to approve funding right now. It might be better to have cash in hand and be like, look, we can subsidize up to X amount per van. But if we want to see how much buy-in there is from the community before we approve funds, I think that would be perfectly workable as well. It's more the preference of everyone else.
All right, well then let me just ask, is there anybody who is not inclined to support a pilot test of this sort? Just informally.
Or is confused about any of the details before we want to get there.
Okay, sorry, somebody I think is, oh, there's a chat comment, sorry. Oops, I just need to. Okay, oh, Jennifer.
Can I ask a question, John?
Sorry, Jennifer Baxter, thank you. Saw you mentioned. Yeah, Larry, go ahead, of course.
Devin, I think I maybe just misunderstood. Did you say On the River Inn is interested? Is there anybody else so far?
Yes, they were just the most recent one that I talked to. But there are, I think at the meeting that we had, there was a representative from the Woodstock in there. I don't have the full attendance of all the businesses, but there were businesses that expressed interest at the kind of preliminary meeting. And then we've been advertising on the listserv. I haven't had a ton of people reach out from there. I actually had one business reach out from White River Junction, but obviously not from Woodstock. It was Peace Milk Pies. So I haven't heard a ton back from listserv, but there seems to be at least enough businesses that if they wanted it to get at least one van.
Yeah. So and the Woodstock Inn is expressed an interest, and so did the Woodstocker. So
Yeah,
Yes.
you're going to know more Monday when the meeting happens and we know who attends.
Ultimately, it only takes like 3. You can do it with one person, but long term, to be economical, you only need 3 or 4 people per van. So as long as there's at least one business interested that has a couple employees that would do it. And while the EDC is only interested in subsidizing new employees, there would be no problem with existing employees partaking in the vans. They just wouldn't have their portion additionally subsidized if we decided to go that avenue. And of course, we can discuss that, but John and I's point of view was that we should probably only be looking at subsidizing new employees, but the state is interested in subsidizing everyone to take the vans.
Yeah, I would disagree with that. I think you should subsidize whoever needs a ride. I mean, it's only going to help the businesses. So why determine whether a new employer or an existing employee? I don't understand why you would make that determination.
well, because the rationale for that is that the EDC does not exist to simply subsidize businesses unless they're going out of business, which was our emergency fund. What we're trying to do is incent growth. So, but however, as a practical matter, as an operational matter, both operationally and financially, it may not make a lot of difference. I mean,
Yeah, the numbers are talking about so little.
yeah, I know. We like
And
dealing with philosophical issues here.
And then there's plenty of time to discuss, that in the future when once we actually are looking at vans to put money towards, we can have that discussion and, hash out whatever we think is best.
The reason I bring it up is you may get more interest from businesses if you leave it open.
Well, I mean, the thing is, there's a real financial, the $700 or $1,400 that the state is paying is going to the businesses directly, in effect. I mean, it is subsidizing the businesses, whether they're existing employees or new employees.
And the employees. I mean, they
It's
would
subsidizing the
ones paying
employees
for transportation.
Right. So they're already getting most of the money. We're just talking about the EDC subsidy shouldn't go, perhaps shouldn't go to them. That's what Devin. But yeah, this is all, as Devin is saying, this is all open to. All right, anyway, other questions or
Ray,
comments? Ray, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that you should subsidize the current employees because they may bring in more family members or more friends.
Mhm.
All I know is when I worked at BU, we had more families working on the custodial staff than we had single or one or two people. They brought in their families because they were good paying jobs. And so I just think that that should be a real consideration, that they can bring in other, more labor force than just new employees.
Interesting.
I mean, with our contribution, we might be talking about saving them $1 or $2 a day, if not less. So I don't think it would be a huge incentive for by adding in our subsidy for the non-new workers, or the current workers rather. But yeah, we can certainly.
Well,
visit that
the current workers would the potential of the current workers bringing in more help is probably far greater than just putting an ad in the paper and saying, we have this van you can use if you're a new employee. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I've
Well,
got
and
yeah.
as a business owner, reliable transportation is a huge issue for a lot of the workers at the level we're talking about who would be able to take advantage of this, which is why I think you should look at all, not just new.
It's an interesting point. Yeah. Joe.
No, yeah, just to support what Ray said, I mean, at Montverde, we don't really, we're in pretty good shape. We don't have a critical issue in terms of employment right now. And that, I feel, and I know, is primarily due to the existing staff networking with families and friends, and recruiting via them, other than newspapers or listserv or any other medium. The friends of current employees are the people that we get, and frankly, turn out to be the best. So I would support what Ray was just suggesting.
All right. Interesting, Devin. So something to keep in mind as you're thinking about this. So. All right. Do you want to turn to the EV? I'm not sure what that is, but go ahead.
Sure. So Jeff Martin from the Two Rivers Ottaquechee Regional Commission reached out. He's the regional energy coordinator, and he's kind of convening potential interest in a roughly $4 million grant for the region that would subsidize things like charging stations, and potentially could, through enterprise, actually convert some of the vans, if these van pools start taking off in our region, could convert those to electric vans. We would not be as involved in that because it's enterprise's vans, but where we could potentially, if we were interested, get charging stations at, throughout wherever the strategic locations would be in the town that these vans would be parked. That could be an option for EV charging stations or anywhere else in town if we wanted them. But they were just asking the EDC if there was any interest in kind of being involved in future conversations about what this could look like and what we could potentially use funds for. And it would be funds from the grant. It wouldn't be our own funds. We would just kind of be coordinating it, I guess, and saying, well, what we want.
What is he looking for from us? Just an indication of interest to explore it? Or?
Yeah. At this stage, just that they're still working out a concept paper of what they would, what the region's need is for this grant. And basically they want to know which communities would be interested in potentially getting some of the benefits of the grant, and who are they talking to kind of coordinate that. So they suggested the EDC is that. It could be some other entity within Woodstock, but Jeff just reached out to me.
Well, one thing, I think there is another entity. It sounds, I'm just guessing, that we don't yet know whether this is something we want to participate in or not. It also doesn't sound like it's a huge amount of work yet for us to participate. So we might as well say yes. But the we who says yes, we might want to talk about we might want to talk to Sustainable Woodstock and ask them if they would be a better point person than us. Maybe they wouldn't.
They're a nonprofit, right?
Yeah,
So
that make a
I don't think
difference.
that would be I guess if they wanted to coordinate with a governmental entity, then that would make a difference. But
But do you, I mean,
Sustainable
if you
Woodstock-
want, is anyone is anyone, are you interested personally in kind of just being the point of coordination for now, or?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to
Yeah.
pressure it. I don't feel.
I mean, if anyone else has a passion about
Yeah.
electric stuff, then
I should have said, does anyone want to follow up on this? I think that's sort of the criteria at the moment. If no one else does, then either you can do it or we can drop it, but you
Yeah,
can.
I can just monitor it and see if there's anything, any opportunities with that. I'll say that we are, I mean, if anyone is opposed to being
No.
interested in potentially being a part of it,
And I would definitely,
monitor it for.
I would definitely talk to Sustainable Woodstock, because they're, they've voiced a lot of concern for anything electric and solar panels and et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure they would have interest, and that may be the better place to put this.
Or together, but at least you should let them know
Yeah.
about this. So, is that Michael Caduto? Is that the person? Is he the head of Sustainable Woodstock? So Patrick, I don't know if you know Michael.
I don't.
I mean, Devin, sorry.
I definitely don't.
Okay, so I'll,
Yeah, I've never interacted with them. I know they exist, but I've never.
okay. That would
crossed
be a
their
good
path.
connection. I would definitely link him in. So why don't you monitor it and link him in? And then you
Okay.
guys can decide how to proceed. Does anyone object to that? Anyone opposed to learning more? All right, good. Okay, thank you. All right, I think I hope our last major discussion is our working group updates. And we have a major update from the marketing group. And we're going to want to have a serious discussion about this. The other groups, I'm going to ask if you're represented here tonight, some of you are, to just give very, very brief updates unless there's something important that I'm not aware of. So Patrick, I think Patrick, Sally, and Jeff am I leaving out? And Beth are all members of the marketing working group. So I'll let you take it from here. I'm not sure who, is that Patrick or?
Yeah, I'll lead it, and then the rest of the group will kick in when I screw something up.
Tell me when you want to change the slides. I have the presentation that was sent out.
Okay. All right. So the marketing group has been getting together on a very regular basis, at least every 2 weeks, if not sooner and quicker. And so far, we've hired a new coordinator. And who's handling blogs, emails, social media. She's replacing Katie, and that's Jennifer Schmidsky. I think I said her name properly. And she's being trained by Jennifer at the Inn, who has been very connected with all of the website and social media items. And then
Jennifer Vincent.
say it again. Jennifer Vincent. Thank you.
Jennifer Vincent.
Yes. And then we've been talking about what the objectives are for sort of relaunching Woodstock now that the pandemic seems to be easing a bit, and the governor wants to, supposedly have us open by July 4th. And we've kind of agreed to recommending hiring an agency to help promote Woodstock to the Boston, New York, Connecticut areas as we see it. You can put the next slide, John. These are the people who are in the group. We'll just keep it up for a minute. Beth and I are the co-chairs of the working group. You can go to the next slide. So we're proposing a 12-month program that would start June 1st, ideally, and would go through the end of May of 2022. So we want to promote the different assets that the area has, not to drive more people here on all seasons, including shoulder seasons, we want to develop a process for creating and managing the marketing efforts so that we can show strong results. The one thing that's really important to us is at the end of the day, we want to know what worked and what didn't work so that we can use more of what does work and improve what didn't work, or just abandon it if we decide it just doesn't work at all. And then another critical part that we always struggle with is a bank of digital assets. So we want to get from the agency video and photography assets that we can use for any of the marketing that Woodstock would need. You go to the next slide, John. And anybody, if you have any questions, just jump right in and ask, please. So we looked at a bunch of agencies. Obviously, we're looking for an agency that is Vermont-based because they understand Vermont. And we selected 4 that we are sending an RFP to. And they're here, Class 4 HMC Advertising, 6 and Place. This will obviously be opened up to the public, so anybody can submit a proposal.
And excuse me, Patrick, I just want to interrupt there. We have not yet posted it on the listserv. Is that correct?
The RFP? I don't think so.
Okay, could I just ask one of the members of the marketing group to do that as soon as you can so that there's enough time? Because I think we have a purchasing policy that we will be in compliance with if we post it on the listserv, but I just want to make sure we do that.
I will do
Yes,
that tomorrow.
Can I just
Saturday.
mention, Patrick, that we were I was waiting until after this meeting to see how it went.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I wasn't suggesting it should have been done already. I just meant that we should do it. That's all. So wait, Sally, I don't know if you heard, but Beth said she was going to do it. Anyway, well, you guys coordinate, figure out who should do it.
You're messing us up, John. No, I'm just kidding. So one of the things that we're looking at from the different agencies is for them to make recommendations to us on what they felt would be the best tools and tactics for us to use. And so we didn't in the RFP spell out every single detail of what we wanted because we want to get a sense of, who's got the different ideas and where we think we might be better served. And then, of course, as I said before, results and measuring that is going to be a key component of whatever proposal we accept. We want to make sure that there are strong measurement tools and metrics. Okay, John, you go to the next one. So what we're proposing is an agency budget of $100,000 and an additional $10,000 that will be used for elements of marketing that will not be done by the agency, like any changes we might need to make to the website, any marketing opportunities that arise that would not be connected to the agency. And then we're looking at using funds that are really coming across multiple years. So we're looking at $27,000 from the 2020 budget, $48,000 from the 2021 budget, and $35,000 from the 2022 budget. So that would give us the funds for the full 110,000. Okay, John, you can go to the next one. So basically, we're asking the EDC if they can decide today, which I guess we don't necessarily have to, but determine whether we can leverage that $110,000 funds for this 12-month marketing program for Woodstock.
Well, and I think, sorry, Patrick, if I can just clarify one thing here. The reason we're doing this is that we're sort of springing this on the group. The reason we're proposing to do this in 2 steps is I felt that we were sort of springing this big proposal on the group, and we don't actually have the marketing group hasn't received back the proposals yet, so they can't recommend a specific agency. by the 20th, they'll be in a position to do that. We're rushing because we want to get ahead of the marketing curve, as we all agreed in public meetings over the last 5 months. And the select board has to, the select board has a meeting soon after the 20th. I don't have the date in my head. So the idea is to give you all a chance to digest this, let them go out, solicit the RFPs, come back to us on a short special meeting of the EDC just to approve this, and formally request, one second, Joe, formally request the budget of 110,000. That, because that's a new grant, well, most of it is a new grant. We would have to then get it approved by the select board, but the agency could get started on June 1st.
And their meeting is on the, I think is on the 15th, John.
Their meeting is the 15th?
Or May 25th, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the 25th. Okay, Patrick, you've got a question from Joe, so why don't you
Joe,
go?
fire away.
So as I understand it, we're talking about a PR firm, right, that you want to hire? Is that correct?
Say it again?
Public relation firm, is that what you're trying?
No.
Marketing agency.
We're not looking at a public relations firm. We're looking at an actual advertising agency who will develop digital ads and so forth. Not a public relations firm.
I think that's very similar to what was tried in the early stages of the EDC.
No, this is completely different, Joe. We'd be doing completely different things. They were looking for basically getting ink in magazines and so forth. We're not looking at that at all. We're looking at literally advertising to the markets to drive traffic to Woodstock. Very, PR is very, very different from advertising.
How?
Because PR, you reach out to people and you hope to get free ink, and you spend all your money hoping that people will take up what you, the stories and stuff that you present. Advertising, we're putting ads out there for people to respond to right away. We're not looking for the generosity of publications and so forth to put us in their magazines. We're placing ads and putting very specific things that are ad-based and not PR-based.
We're writing the content as opposed to someone else writing it, and we're paying for that content to be put in exactly the way we write it rather than someone else.
When you see, like, for example, Joe, you see Facebook and you see people who are posting things. Well, within there's also ads. Those people pay to have those ads put in there. And that's the type of thing we'll be doing. We'll be paying to be placing advertising in different places. And again, I don't know what the full detail is because we're going to be reaching out to these agencies to say, here's our budget that we want to spend, understand what we want out of this, and what is your best recommendation for us to leverage this budget and be able to measure the results at the end of the day.
Okay.
And I want to reinforce that part, that having a metric and being able to measure what worked and what didn't work is what this is really going to be a lot about. That and building a good asset library that does not exist right now.
Yeah. Okay, well, I do remember that metrics was one of the key components that the EDC back then was looking for from, you can call it public relations or whatever. That is probably what we spent. I think at that time was $70,000. It was metric determinant. In other words, what everybody was looking for was metrics. What was working, what wasn't working.
But the tactics they used, Joe, were not advertising tactics. They were PR tactics, which are, a friend of mine once said, with PR, you put stuff out there and you pray for it, and then you're really happy when you actually get it. Advertising, you pay for and you get it, because you're putting stuff in where you want because you're paying to put it in there. PR is not that way. PR is you're reaching out, hoping that people will like your stories and put you in. This is the complete opposite of that.
Okay. Thank you.
I think Larry has a question.
I'm sorry, I was going to say Dawn.
No, I know. It's much better. I got a couple of questions. Does this funding include payment to the agency?
Yes.
And how much is in that budget for the agency to spend for the advertising?
That will be determined when the agencies come back to us with their proposals. And that's where a big part of what we're going to do in terms of the assessment of who we want to use is who's going to be giving us the best bang for our budget. You know, who's going to be basically using the least funds for them and the most funds for media and stuff that we'll be placing, and for digital assets.
Okay.
What would you expect, Patrick? What would be a good proposal or breakdown? Maybe that's hard to answer.
That's hard to answer because digital is such a you get a lot for digital, you know, and we're asking for a very fast time frame. So we're until we see what the proposals are, it's going to be hard to say exactly what the breakouts are, which is why the second meeting, because we hope to get the proposals in, so then we can actually speak to that before we approve the 100,000 budget.
Can I break in for a second, Patrick?
Sure, go ahead, Jeff.
Just want to add that I think it's really important for the EDC to understand where we actually are in this process, and that the timetable that you're seeing on the screen may not be one that is viable, because it's such a short time table, and 2 of the 4 agencies that we've approached have already said they can't meet it. I really think it's much more realistic for us to consider not a June 1st beginning, but a July beginning.
Yeah.
Giving time for these agencies to apply, and we may need to find more agencies than we've got right now. And so I think it's just way too tight a timetable. I think in the emails within the committee, we've kind of come to that place that this may be too soon, but not by, next month in June.
Yeah.
Instead of July. And to answer, Joe, your question, well, some of the things that are going to happen up front, no matter what agency it is, as Patrick said, acquiring assets requires a lot of video and photography work that is going to accrue over time. Because if we want to film concerts at the East End, if we want to film Taste of Woodstock on Elm Street, if we want to film an art show in September, if we want to film the Wassail and so forth, that's all going to be within those first 12 months. And it will be a large part of whatever agency we accept. That's where a lot of the money will go to in that first year, because that's just the nature of things.
Yeah, we need that digital asset library that does not exist right now. We leverage the inn for a lot of what we have, and their focus is a little different than what Woodstock's focus might be, and so building that digital asset is going to be a critical part of this whole piece.
Larry?
Yeah, I had a couple of quick question. How much of that is new money? I was a little confused about the.
Yeah.
John, I'll let you explain that. You understand that better than I do.
Basically, the 27,000 is what we just released. I think the number was 29. We have to find the exact number, but somewhere between 27 and 29 is what we just released from the moratorium. 48,000 would be from our 350,000 that we would have by the end of this year, or kind of our current budget. And then 35,000 would be, because this runs into 5 of the 12 months, 5/12 of the remainder is from 2022. So the 35,000 would be for 2022, but we need to commit to it now, because we can't tell the agency, we're asking the agency to propose on a 12-month program. So okay. We have the money, obviously, but conceptually we're committing $35,000 of 48,000 of this year's funds. The 27,000 was from 2020. Does that make sense?
Yep. Can I ask one more question, then I'll get off? All everything you were talking about is bringing, I gather, tourists to Woodstock. Is there thought of also trying to reach out to potential remote workers to actually move to Woodstock? And is that not part of the economic development plan, is to try to get more people to live
kind
here?
That's a byproduct.
Yeah, the thought of the group was that if we drive people here to fall in love with Woodstock, that there's going to be a percentage of those people who are going to fall in love and want to move here. You know, and even within the group, a bunch of us did exactly that. I'm one of those people who came to Woodstock, fell in love with it, and now live and work here. And so our first thought is we need to get bodies here. We need to get people spending money in town and at the businesses to help them recover. And you know, this first year is really going to be about doing that and building the digital asset library.
Patrick, is there a way, can I follow up on Larry's question? Because I can understand both sides of this issue. And again, longer term, I think the issue goes away because I think we can, but I'm wondering whether or not we couldn't devote a small piece of the 20 of this 12-month plan to testing some digital messaging around remote work and having some metrics, you know, number of inquiries or something of that sort. I think that there's a around a proposition of moving here, whether probably based on remote work, but you know, we could, whatever value proposition the marketing group decides to put forward, whether we could test some you know, like in real estate magazine, you know, whatever, where it would be slightly different than tourism.
Well, here's the struggle we have right now. There's no housing in Woodstock. You know, so we can drive people here, but can they afford to buy, or if, for that matter, are there any homes right now?
Exactly. Or
Well,
apartments.
Well, sorry, can I, I think that would be correct. That would be a good rationale for not doing anything longer term, but
Right.
figuring out what works. And by works, I would say what, you know, a metric might be, you know, inquiries to realtors that were triggered by it or something of that sort.
I think we can definitely build in, you know, some type of metric to collect information and to be able to market to people potentially directly. I think this first year, though, we need to look at least this first year. I can see the second year, you know, changing that. But I think the first year, it's really about building the digital asset library and getting traffic here to let people know Woodstock's open. I think we need to stay single focus and very targeted on that. Long-term wise, I agree we can find ways to add that, you know, live and work here component. But I think right now, out of the gate, I think we need to just first get traffic here and build that library.
Okay, I think this will, I think, be a recurring issue. My view is it's the marketing group's recommendation. So, you know,
And I'm not saying we can't do it. You know, what I'm saying is I think it would be best to focus this year just on driving traffic and then build in that for the second year because we could build a whole structure into that. You know, but right now it's I think more of a challenge to get people here and build the library.
all right, Devin, and then Larry, if you want to follow up on that, but Devin first.
I would agree with Patrick on that approach. I think that getting, you know, if tourists don't show up and these businesses, you know, aren't successful over the next year, you know, the town's not going to be nearly as attractive to people who are going to be remote workers. So I think that focusing all the resources first on bringing tourists back, and then, I mean, I think a big piece, as you pointed out, Patrick, was housing. As the EDC has its, you know, housing proposals start to develop, that will all of a sudden create a supply that, you know, in tandem with trying to then market Woodstock to remote workers could, you know, work well together. And by then, companies will have ironed out their remote work policies. We're going to go through another transition when companies try to pull people back to offices. If they do, that still remains largely unanswered. I mean, I know there are still companies who have not figured out how much longer they're going to do remote work, if it's permanent, if it's semi-permanent, et cetera. So I don't think that we would get many, other than just for data collection purposes, I don't know if we would get any serious inquiries of trying to move here for remote work based solely off of this endeavor.
Plus, to tie in the other things that the EDC are doing, you know, the attracting new businesses, the rejuvenation. You know, I think all of these things work together in this initial year to move into then attracting people to move here. And once we have a little more idea of driving people here, we can then take step 2 of that and figure out how do we, the people who get here, how do we then market to them to want to live here? Because I think you need to, it's very hard to reach out to somebody and say, hey, move to Woodstock. But it's a lot easier to reach out to somebody and say, hey, you've visited Woodstock a bunch of times now. How about moving here? You know, there's more of a story. They understand what it is. So I think that has to be step 2. Step 1 is we need to get Woodstock reopened.
All right, other comments or questions? Joe?
Well, I'm struggling with a certain amount of discomfort about this. And probably from a different perspective. And I'm sure that there's going to be people who are going to disagree with me, but I really feel that Woodstock is going to really blossom this summer and fall without a whole lot of a certain amount of advertising is always necessary. And I've learned being in business for a while that you can waste a lot of money in advertising if you're not careful. But to spend some money now to drive folks here for this summer or this season and fall and trying to get people to live here when, you know, I was talking to John Snyder yesterday and house business is terrible because they don't have anything to sell. Where are they going to live? If we want to get them here, the focus I think should be on setting a better foundation that we currently have in Woodstock in terms of A, housing, B, a diversification of a commercial district, and the impressions and the way people will respond to that, in my opinion, is more important now than trying to figure how to drive more people here. I think we're going to get people here. I'm a little concerned. I expressed this to John just the other day. I don't think we're ready now in town for what it might happen and what it probably, I think, is going to happen this summer and fall.
Yeah. Joe, you make a...
And John expressed, let me finish. And John expressed, well, it's a good problem to have. Yeah, it is. But then again, it isn't. Because if we can't make them happy when they get here, why would they want to come back? Why would they? What are they going to tell their families and friends when they leave? There was no place to eat. There's only 2 or 3 places where we could get a decent lunch. No, there isn't many places to have dinner. I mean, you know, I think the focus should be, again, the foundation of what we have here and how to really stabilize that and cultivate that and have something to sell then. Right now, you know, we've got a lot of work to do with just having a good thing to sell, a good thing to market.
Yeah,
I think, in my opinion. Anyway,
Joe, I agree with a lot of what you're saying in terms of this summer and fall.
Right.
All indications from the Woodstock Inn and other places where people have to stay, unless they're making a day trip from Boston, they need to stay places, and they're all getting completely booked up, as are rentals. So the thing about having a marketing plan that's multi-year is you have to start with acquiring assets and then creating a strategy that's extending over multiple years. And for instance, this year, I agree. Nope, we're going to be busy. So it's actually spending a lot of money to try to be too busy this summer. I don't think that's where any agency would be really active as much as creating the assets and strategies and planning for 2022.
Yeah.
Because in 2022, there's a very good chance that people will want to expand where they go to travel, whereas this summer they're going to try to stay close. You know, there may be travel to Europe in 2022. That doesn't exist now. maybe travel to California, that people are saying, no, let's just stay home. We're just barely getting over COVID. Let's stay in New England. So I think it'd be foolish to, you know, what you're implying is to just throw out the marketing agents.
No, I'm not implying that, Jeff. No, no, no,
Okay,
no.
all right, well then,
I'm thinking that
I think
maybe it should be a different priority list right now.
I
But
think that
listen-
the agencies reveal that in their responses.
Plus, Joe, understand that a lot of this is for building a digital asset library that we do not have. I mean, think about what it costs to shoot video and good photography. You know, it's very pricey, and particularly since we need to shoot this over the whole year because, you know, you can't shoot Wassel in July. You know, it just doesn't work that way. So a lot of the money that's going to be spent is going to be developing that digital asset, and we'll still be creating, basically, I put it this way, right? This year, we're going to be doing some of the blocking and tackling that hasn't been done before, working on SEO and the underneath stuff that's going to make 2022, you know, really be the year that we have a real campaign, an overarching message. But in 2021, we need to do the blocking and tackling first, and a big part of that is going to be the digital asset library.
Okay.
Is
I
another,
mean, I think this is a great discussion, and I'm glad we're having it. But yeah, I just hope we don't lose track of the fundamentals and the foundational stuff that really hasn't been done yet, when we should, you know, be doing it. And I know we're working on it, John. I know we are. But sometimes I'm saying, you know, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, and you know, really focus on what needs to be done now.
yeah, it's a fair point. Good point. All right,
I think we're in agreement, Joe. In actuality, it may not sound like it, but you know, we really want to build the foundation for 2022.
Yeah,
from an advertising standpoint, from a marketing standpoint.
Devin?
Because that's never been done here. That's the one thing. Woodstock has never really built that marketing foundation. We've thrown, you know, money at the wall a few different ways, but we've never really built the foundation. And that's really what this year is about.
Okay, great. I'm glad we're having this talk.
No, great questions. I appreciate them.
My point was just that I agree with everything that's being said, and I think that to Joe's point, that if Woodstock is going to blossom this summer, what better time to start building digital assets when Woodstock is full and everything is reemerging and it looks great. It seems like the perfect time to capture Woodstock in a moment that is then used to market it for a decade.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, that part of this foundation should be, and I think it absolutely is, because you focus so much on the metrics, Patrick, and marketing group, to make sure that we really learn what works and what doesn't work. Yeah. And by works, I don't mean that we attract 1 million people, but that the ratio of a number of people per dollar is measurable. We can do that with a small number of advertising dollars, so that when we are ready to advertise in May, when we're ready to put most of our money towards advertising, because we already have the digital assets, we know where to place them. And we've done some experiments in the past that haven't worked particularly well. Television hasn't worked particularly well, but we haven't really done any sophisticated analysis. I mean, we've done a little, but not much, of what really works in terms of, when we've done none in terms of paid advertising. And so understanding, so we have to do some amount of advertising. It's very small, I think, but some amount to do the experiments, so that when we're ready to ramp up, we don't waste a lot of money or time. So
yeah, we'll be determining like where are the best places to put the ad money in, you know. And you're right, John. It's going to be a lot of testing at this point to figure out what works and what doesn't work. Yeah. And as to Jeffrey's point, which has been very important on his side of things, is to build the asset library.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments about this plan? Again,
Devin, you were raising your hand. Did you have a question?
Oh, no, I'm good.
Oh, you're good. Okay.
So let me just ask one quick question, and let me go back to sharing now, because so I think just going back to, from a timing point of view, the purpose of this, I think Patrick and others have made and I have made a good point about, we want to see what the proposals are before we vote to spend money. I think that's reasonable. Does anyone disagree with that? Okay, then, so that we are going to have another meeting. What I'd like to do is, because we can't schedule a special meeting of the EDC overnight, partly just for human reasons and also because we're required to give advance notice of it. So I'm going to ask the marketing group to come back to us, as soon as you can, and tell us whether or not we need to have a meeting in May. If the timetable that Jeff was describing is more accurate, then we don't need a special meeting. We could approve the fund. We could have the special meeting, but it might be June 15th for a July 1 start, or June 20th for a July 1 start. The select board doesn't meet until June 1st. It turns out the meeting is the 8th. I was wrong on the meeting. So the earliest we could get it approved fully would be June 1st, but it sounds to me as if it's unlikely that the May 20th meeting will be the date of the special meeting. So if you would just keep us posted on that. Obviously we don't, we want to get, obviously we want to do it in a time frame where we get good proposals rather than just hitting an arbitrary date. Larry?
I would assume that underlying all this is that if you find success, this is going to be an annual expenditure from the EDC going forward, 2020.
Ideally, that's what we'd like to plan that into the budget every year so that we can, continue what we start and just keep improving, and changing as things need to change.
I mean, order of magnitude, Larry, this is about 20% more than what we've been spending annually in marketing for the last few years.
Okay, I was confused as to whether this was an overlay on what we are already doing and expenditure wise, or whether it's part of it.
Well, it's complicated. We are spending about, correct me if I'm wrong, Sally, but we're spending about we're spending about $2,000 a month on our current organic marketing, the blog, the website, the email campaigns. That's the new digital marketing manager. And we're spending some modest amount of money on the website itself, the hosting. So that's probably about $30,000 a year, $30,000 currently on a annualized. We allocated $80,000 or $85,000 for that plus marketing. So I suppose this is 30 plus this. So it's going from 80 to 140. I would not make any assumptions about what the sustainable level is. I think it's way premature to do that. If the marketing campaign is wildly successful, we might say we want to spend even more because we can see the immediate payback. On the other hand, it might be like the TV program where we're disappointed. We thought it would work, but we were disappointed. So obviously we want to have a strategic expert approach to marketing every year, not just this year.
Right, and if we can target and focus well, we don't necessarily have to spend more money. Right. We'll just focus it better, that's really why the metrics is so important in this and really measuring. And just FYI, a little background for me, I come from the direct marketing world. It's all about cost per order, cost per sale type of thing. So, I'm always going to look at it that way and push that heavily. Just because that's where I come from. And direct marketers don't waste money on things that don't work.
So, but I think we, as an EDC, we're not making a more than 12-month commitment. It happens to be multi-year because of the timing of it, but we're making a 12-month decision, not a perpetual decision.
That's right, John. However, we are going to be asking these companies to propose in response to the RFP something that looks beyond 12 months.
As we should.
Doesn't mean after 12 months we'd keep that company or
no. As we should, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting. Yeah, I'm not. I think the success would be running this kind of program and permanently.
Yeah, I mean, basically, we should look at the marketing as an investment, and with an investment, you're looking for a return. This is not an expense. And, so whatever we do, we're going to be looking for a return. If we're not getting that return, then we change or we modify, we do something, but it's always going to be looked at as an investment and not as an expense.
Okay, so I think what we wanted to do tonight is to get everyone up to speed and so forth, so that we will be prepared to debate and have a discussion and a formal decision on whether to approve these funds for a specific firm who has been selected by the marketing group as the best of the ones that we received. And that would, and you're gonna, working group, you're going to advise us as to what the timing of that decision meeting would be. So is everyone okay with that process? So again, we didn't want to force, I didn't want to force this decision on us today because we need time to reflect on it and to see the proposals. Okay, moving on, just thank you, the whole working group, thank you. You've kind of, upped the pace and intensity of work, as well as operationally hiring a new person who seems to have taken over smoothly and so forth. So good work over the last 3 or 4 months or so. Thank you for all of that work. And if you'll pass on to the other members of the committee who aren't here tonight. Working group updates, just very quickly, I'll set this, the housing group has now met. And we've had our first meeting. We're about to have our second meeting, and I will report to you progress when we have some. So, but we do exist, and we've started meeting. Are there any updates from the other groups before we get to Teagle's Landing, which I know we're going to have a quick update on? Larry?
Yeah, the policy group has put together a survey, and it's gone out to, I'm not sure exactly the number, about approximately 30 downtown businesses as a start. Went out, I believe, on Monday, and we're got some results back, and we'll come back with a full set of results. I didn't know whether you wanted the survey to be posted or not.
It's up to you. What do you mean post? You mean on the listserv?
Yeah, no, just on the EDC site. Do you?
Oh, sure. It's up to you if you'd like to. If just send it to me and I'll find a place to post it. Yeah, or send it to me or Sally. I think it depends where on the website. But yes, it's up to you. If you guys.
Well, okay. Anyway, we've got a survey out there.
Yeah. Okay. Any other updates from any of the other groups? Okay. The last item then is just a quick project update. This is sort of our standard. And Joe, I hope you don't mind, but I've been taking pictures every day, and I thought I would just preface whatever update you're going to get. Oh, you're muted. Joe, you're muted. You're muted, Joe.
There you go. Yeah, you told me about that, John. So have I, but go ahead. Do you want to?
So here, so this was the earliest one that I have.
Yeah.
And then you can see that the circle is forming for those of you that haven't been there. There's a circular area there, and the rocks are in place in here. A bit more.
Did you take one this afternoon, John?
Yeah, I did, but it's not very good. It's a bad one. I'm a terrible photographer. So here's the one today. No, this is the one today where the plantings are starting to get in. So Joe, I don't know if you want to talk to this one or not, but you can't really see all of it. But.
It's just that I couldn't be more pleased and more excited about anything that I've really been involved with in my 30 years of living in town. I mean, these guys are just artists. If somebody asked me if I could find fault, big or small fault, with anything that Cy and his crew have done, I couldn't answer that. They're doing just a fantastic job. So where we're at right now is that the stonework is done and it's complete. The trees went in today and some of the plantings, and then tomorrow they will conclude the rest of the plantings, I believe. Then there's lunch at Montverde for the guys, and then they'll probably clean up a little bit and get things out of the way. There's going to be a little bit of a glitch because the railings cannot be made until measurements are taken on the actual in place granite work. If they're off within a half or an inch, then it doesn't work. So the people who are making the railings are coming in the first part of the week, and they're going to measure things up The downside of that is it probably means that even though it'll look complete, with all the plantings and everything cleaned up, we're not gonna be able to let people down there without the railings because it just isn't a good idea. So we might have to wait another week or better after they take measurements before, and then they install the railings before we're actually gonna allow the public to go in. The picnic tables are done. I sanded them, I stained them, I put the wood preservative on them. They're all assembled. They're sitting in the barn behind Montverde. They'll probably go in. I'm a little reluctant to put them in until the railings in because people might be tempted to go down there if they see picnic tables down there. So I might wait a while. But other than that, good news all the way around. These guys are fantastic. I'm so proud of them all. And soon to be done. Soon to be done.
It's got to be a gem in our village, a real gem, Joe, right in the middle. It's really beautiful.
I couldn't agree with you more. This is the kind of foundational thing I was trying to talk about earlier. This is the kind of thing that people are going to come here and see and remember and talk about when they go home. That's the kind of thing.
Hey,
Anyway.
I just want to say, Joe, great job, because I drive through town many times a day and I see Joe there every day talking to these guys. And so you're doing a great job managing it. It looks great so far.
Oh, they're great
Joe and
guys.
Beth, we should give Beth.
Yes, Beth,
credit as well.
absolutely. Beth, every time I've asked Beth to do something, she's done it. She's done it quickly and professionally. And every time she does, I say, well, I owe you a bottle of wine for that one, Beth. And I think I'm up to about a case and a half right now. So, yeah, couldn't do it without Beth.
All right, very good. Okay, I think that's it. That's it. Good discussions tonight. Thank you all. We'll let you know if there does need to be a special meeting in May. We'll let you know as soon as possible. It sounds like we may or may not need it, but we'll see. Thanks, everybody. The next meeting, I think, is June 1st. It might, I think. But anyways, first Thursday in June. Sorry, can I just ask you one very quick question before we leave? Does anyone have any feelings? We about 7 months ago, we decided to change the time of the meetings from, what time did we used to meet? 7 or 7:30?
7.
From 7 to 6.
Right.
I'm sure that's been, is there any, does anyone have any, should we change, anyone have any feelings about the new time? Anyone have any negative feelings about the new time? Let me narrow it down.
And this is good. I think we get done at a reasonable hour, so I think it's good.
Okay. All right, just checking. It's fine with me. I'm just curious. Okay, sounds good.
John,
Okay, do we do-
motion to adjourn, please.
Thank you, Sally. Is there a motion to adjourn? Michael raised his finger.
So moved.
Is there a second? Patrick has seconded. Jeff tried to second it, but he realized he's not on the EDC. All right, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thanks, everybody. We are adjourned. Take care. Thank you, Sally. I always forget that.